Hey everyone, welcome back. So I promised you guys yesterday that I was going to do the videos for each miner for the production updates for April. But looking at how many there are, there's 9 of them. It was going to take me like 8-9 hours to record, do a post, then upload to YouTube and everything else. This is going to take me too much time, and I do this in my spare time. So apologize for that. But I will provide the timestamps in the bottom here, chapters, so that way you guys can take a look at them, the ones that interest you. But we got Cleanspark, CORZ Scientific, Digihost, DMG, IREN, Hive, Luxxfolio, Riot, Marathon, and Marathon also provided their Q1 results for that. So we'll do that right now. It's going to be a pretty long video. I'm guessing I want to keep it under at least an hour just to go over everything. And then as you can see behind me here on that chart, that's Bitcoin for today. It was actually a pretty bad day. Yesterday I was complaining that I was hoping that Bitcoin would go down a little bit so I could dollar cost average in a little bit more, buy some more. I got my wish, came true, I guess. So I did buy 100 more shares of Bitfarms today and 30 more shares of Cleanspark, just a dollar cost average in. And I'll continue doing that as long as I have the cash to do it. So let's get into it. And as always, not financial advice. You guys know the drill here. I'm investing in the following companies and coins. So let's get into the first one here, which is Cleanspark. We'll get into Cleanspark and then we'll go over the numbers and so forth. So let me zoom this in for you guys a little bit. All right, so Cleanspark provided April monthly production was 313 Bitcoins. Calendar year-to-date production ending April 30th was 121 Bitcoins. Sorry, 1,211 Bitcoins. Total BTC holdings as of April 30th, excuse me, was 448. Total BTC converted for operational and growth in April was 285. Currently deployed fleet of over 24,000 latest generation Bitcoin miners with a total hash rate of 2.4 exahash. So nice growth, obviously, for them. April daily BTC production reached a high of 10.75 excuse me, Bitcoins per day. And get some location-specific operation updates. So Norcross miner installations continue with about 1,200 immersion-cooled S19J Pros hashing as of April 30th. So here's a quote from them. We are executing in phases to ensure maximum value in terms of overclocking and efficiency, said Zach Bradford, CEO. We expect to see our installations and associated hash rate continue to increase as we fine-tune our process. And that's one thing that I'm looking for from them, is to get some data on it as far as how much of an improvement are those immersion cooled miners doing. Then their College Park, the company is delivering on efficiency and uptime with approximately 12,000 latest generation miners hashing at that facility. CoinMint, the company continues to expand its relationship with approximately 11,000 machines hashing at that facility. And Lancium, an agreement for up to 500 megawatts, was signed in late March with operations expected to commence in Q4 of 2022. So not too far away from that. All right, so let's take a look at the numbers that I have for them, and we'll talk about some of the details here. So here's Cleanspark. Let's take a look at the numbers here. April, 313, so a little bit less than in March. They had 318 in March mined here. And that is basically, I think, mostly because we had 1 day less in April than we did in March. March had 31 days. April only has 30 days. So based on the information that we do have, I'm using the end of April price for Bitcoin, which gives us about 11.7 million in revenue for them. And also looking at the institutions here, we are pretty much, we had a little bit of an increase, 146 now. So 2 more institutions bought into it. There are now 13.03 million shares by institutions, and that's basically 34.45% owned by institutions. We still have 1 strong buy, 1 regular buy, with a price target of 30 for high, 23 for average, and low of 16. Sorry, guys. What else can I show you? Okay, so based on that information, we're at 11.78 for April. If we scroll here to April, I have them at 11.782, which is really close to what they reported. And we did get a couple miners installed here. So we got basically these miners here installed, 290 of these as well, the 100 terahash miners. And then also down here, 320 of the 100 terahash miners as well. So I'm kind of trying to divvy it up a little bit between when the miners were supposed to come in. So we got some February, March orders. April, we're still maybe a little bit behind. Same thing in here, we're still a little bit behind on February, March, April orders as well. And I have those mining at about 24 days or so in order to get to that 11.78 million mark. So those might have been pretty quickly installed, which is a good thing good thing to see as well. Going up here, we can take a look at their Q1. We have them at about 37.9 million. We'll see what they report, obviously, for Q1. Q2 right now is looking at about 33, and that's basically because the Bitcoin price has come way down. We're now using, I should probably update this while I'm thinking about it. The Bitcoin price right now is at 36,480. Let me update this really quick. 36,480. We obviously went way down today. 480. So we'll have the most recent price on it. Let's go back here. Cleanspark. So that obviously has an impact on their revenue. So now we got them at 31.4 million for this quarter if everything stays where it's at. Bitcoin, obviously, I'm hoping Bitcoin kind of rebounds a little bit, but we'll see. We'll do another video on Bitcoin and some news later on. Today, we'll take a look at what's happening there. But right now, they're obviously down from the 37, where Bitcoin was obviously higher priced here in the first quarter than it is currently in the second quarter. And then we can also see September and December going down a little bit, and that's basically because possibly the hash rate is going to be increasing as well. So difficulty is going to increase, and this is obviously going to be the same for all the miners going forward. So Bitcoin price has to go up, miners have to get installed in order for them to continue to make more money for each quarter. So we'll see how they do in May, which is what we're in now, and then June to see what they actually come up with as far as what they made in Q2. HODL position for BTC right now is 448 for them. So that's equivalent to about 16.3 million based on the current price of Bitcoin. That represents only a 5.71% HODL to market cap percentage. So each share has about 39 cents right now, which is pretty good. And then if we look also at their miner installation, we can see that they had installed about 1,500 miners in February, 1,007 miners in March, 900 miners in April. So it's kind of slowing down a little bit. I'd like to see this start to pick back up a little bit. But we'll see how this also plays out. Hash rate has obviously increased nicely. So hash rate, 150 petahash in February, March was 100, and April was 90. So still increasing, but they got to get that going as well. The nice thing about obviously Cleanspark is that they do use a lot of their Bitcoin to fund operations, which is good. And looking at it here, so current hash rate is at 2.4. Future hash rate that's reported is going to be at 4.1, 4.2 roughly. So they are 57% operational right now. And hash rate, average hash rate per miner is 100 terahash, 100.3 basically. Their current stock price is $6.90. Market cap is 286 million. And basically they are at, even at price to earnings multiple of 5, they're at 11.75 right now. So they're way undervalued. I think they're like at 2 or something like this on the price to earnings multiple right now, which is just ridiculous. Everybody got beat up in the mining space right now. Everything is way undervalued. I think it's a buying opportunity, not financial advice, but I'm buying what I can when I can. So overall, great growth for them. We'll see how it may plays out, but we obviously want to continue to see growth continuing on into each month. There's not much else to go over, so I think we're done with Cleanspark here. So now we'll get into the next one. So the next one is CORZ Scientific. CORZ Scientific is obviously the biggest one of them all. So CORZ Scientific announces April updates. Got some pictures, advertisement. So self-mining. So CORZ Scientific self-mining operations produced 1,121 Bitcoins in April, which is the most out of all of these guys. If we look, it might be, well, it wouldn't be the combination, but it's like the combination of 3 or 4 of the biggest guys out here that obviously produce this much. So averaging 37.4 Bitcoins per day, which is an increase from March's daily average of 36.9. And then as of April 30th, the company held 9,618 Bitcoins produced from operations. So they are now, I believe, the biggest holder of Bitcoins out of the miners that I cover. And then as of April month end, CORZ Scientific operated its own fleet of more than 85,000 Bitcoin miners producing 8.9 exahash. So they're also the biggest right now in self-Bitcoin mining. And they're increasing quite rapidly, which is nice to see. Hosting, I take a kind of look at hosting, but hosting is very small as far as net revenue for them. It's only, from what I saw in the last quarterly reports, it came out to be like 2-3% basically net revenue on hosting, which isn't much. So we're covering it here, but we're not really putting it into the calculations because it's just so minuscule right now. So the diverse group of customers represents about 8.1 exahash. So combine that with the 8.9, and you're at basically 17 exahash, which is quite substantial and really big. Infrastructure, so Core Scientific continued the development and expansion of its operations in Texas, while data centers owned and operated by the company in Georgia, Kentucky, North Carolina, and North Dakota continued to operate as expected. So that's obviously the nice thing about Core is that they do own their own infrastructure, which is really good. Grid support update. So in the month of April, the company powered down a portion of its data center operations in Texas on 6 occasions for a total of 220 megawatt hours. Core Scientific will continue to work with the communities and utility companies in which it operates to enable and ensure electrical grid stability, which is also really good. And that's obviously what's allowing a lot of these guys to move into Texas, because they are willing to work with the electrical grid and the communities to power down when they need to, when the communities need more power. So this is obviously a good thing. Yeah, it's just a good thing. All right, so let's take a look at Core Scientific, what I have for them. So Core Scientific, there we go. All right, so they did also mine a little bit less this month than they did the previous month. They mined 1,121 in April. March was 1,143, so it's a little bit of a decrease, 22 decrease on that, and that's basically 1 day less in the month. So there's a slight drop in it. But the biggest thing is obviously the Bitcoin price is down. So we're at 42,198,000. And if we look at the Bitcoin price in March, we were at 45,528 at the end of March, which is a huge difference, obviously, from 37,000. So that's contributing to a lesser revenue for them and for the rest of the guys as well. Institution-wise, everything pretty much stayed the same. Nothing has changed here. The only thing that has changed on it was the average went up a little bit to 17.69, and the low went up to $16 price targets from the analysts, which is good. Self or hosting part of it in April got them to basically 8.1, which is what they reported. And that basically represented having these miners here getting installed, roughly the 2011 miners here from their customers. And for their self-hosting in April, we have them at getting these miners here installed, which represented 600 petahash increase, which is a lot. That's a nice increase there. 6,000 miners being installed in the month of April. We'll take a look at Marathon, but Marathon is having trouble, so maybe Marathon could take a few pointers from Core Scientific here. But basically, we're at 42,195,000, which is really close to what they reported, 42,198,000. So we're within 3,000, which is perfect. Right about there. And that represented also reducing the amount of days that they were mining to 29.39 based on what they reported as having to shut down for the community and the power grid. So that is reflected in that. New miners are in for 20. And looking at the quarter totals, we're looking at about 136 million for Q1, and right now 114 million for Q2 if things stay the way that they are staying. And then there's obviously some income from their hosting, but it's minimal. It's maybe about $1 million or so, or less than that per quarter, I think, or per month. It's not that much. So we'll see actually what data we get from their report on Q1, and then we'll update it to see if we can get maybe the miners down below for hosting a little bit more accurate as far as what they could be making from those. So that represents that. Bitcoin HODL, obviously a huge HODL position, 9,618. That represents about $350 million. That's 20.85% of their market cap right now. They are at 1.68 billion. And that represents about $1.11 per share of Bitcoin HODL in its share. Stock price right now is $5.32, and shares outstanding is 316 million. So here's what we have. Current hash rate for their self-mining is 8.9, hosting is 8.1, total is 17 exahash right now. They are about 51.69% operational, so they still have a ways to go to get to that 17.2, which is really big. And then obviously 15.9 for hosting, for a total of 33 exahash right now. So they are a monster in this. Looking at the numbers here, they're at 532 right now. It looks like based on the price to earnings multiple, that would bring them down to about a 5 or so. Yeah, 5.5 price range multiple, way undervalued in my opinion. This is Core Scientific might be the next one that I start nibbling on a little bit and starting to buy some more positions into it, depending on if the price goes down any lower. It's just looking too good of a buy right now, especially for a long-term hodler like I am. I usually buy and hold for a long time, not a trader. So, being able to buy the dips on these is huge right now, because I do believe Bitcoin eventually will, whether it's this year, next year, is going to get to 100,000 and then even higher than that. And then these guys are going to obviously rocket. So overall, huge increase for them. Way to go for Core. We'll run some other numbers against these guys later on once we have all the data for all the miners. But right now, they're definitely the one to beat. So congrats to those guys at Core. Nice job on execution and getting these miners installed. So let's get into the next one here. So the next one is Digihost. So Digihost is one of the smaller ones here. So Digihost announces 44% increase in monthly Bitcoin production and provides operational updates. So here's the production highlights for April 2022. So they mined 109.03 BTC, resulting in a total holdings of 797.28 BTC at the end of April, valued at approximately 30.1 million, based on BTC price of 37,715, which is pretty close to what I have it. And Ethereum holdings of 1,000.89 at the end of April, valued at approximately 2.7 million. Total digital asset inventory value consisting of BTC and Ethereum, approximately 32.8 million. And then consistent with the company's stated objectives to avoid equity dilution for its shareholders, management sold a portion of BTC production during the month to fund energy costs, which is good to see. We obviously don't want to see dilution. Let me see. The company mined an additional 33.44 BTC during April compared to March, an increase of 44%. Based on closing BTC price on April 30th, 2022 and March 30th, 2022, the value of the company's BTC in April increased approximately 8.7 million or 20% month over month. Year over year monthly comparison, we can go over that. Operational update. So during April 2022, Digihost successfully completed electrical testing phases at the company's infrastructure build out in North Tonawanda. The company demonstrated the ability to sustain aggregate operating levels at approximately 1 exahash while meeting all internal assessment qualifications. The testing was completed in an efficient manner by temporarily accessing power from the local electrical grid. As previously disclosed, the company awaits approval from New York Public Service Commission to complete the acquisition of the 60 megawatt power plant in North Tonawanda. We'll have to see how this all works out, because I think there's some news on New York possibly banning Bitcoin mining. So we'll have to see what that plays out like. The company anticipates its hashing power will decrease in May 2022 until the acquisition is finalized, and in the interim has submitted a request to the utility provider for a permanent allocation of power at the North Tonawanda location. So operational expansion. The company has recently acquired and escrowed 25 acres of land in North Carolina in conjunction with ongoing negotiations to access 200 megawatt power infrastructure program that would be expected to be completed and ready for the operation by the end of Q3 of 2023. So that is obviously still a year and a half away. Green energy at the market financing, and that is it. Don't believe that they had increased any other hash rate here, but we'll take a look at the numbers that I have for them. So Digihost, let's take a look at it. So April was a great month for them. Nice increase in BTC mined, 109.03. Right? Did I get that right? Or did I miss something wrong here? Mined production highlights in April. Yep, 109.03. Okay. So nice increase, obviously, for them. 33.79 more than in March. Represents a 44.91% increase. We had that pretty much 2 months in a row, which is really good to see. We did have a couple months where they were slow. Prior to that, in February, January, and December. Excuse me. But obviously, this is nice to see. 109, so valued at 4.1 million. And institution-wise, they did get an increase, so 2 more institutions bought into it. Shares is now 1.92 million, but obviously the percent owned went down to 6.95, so I'm guessing that more shares came online. We still have 1 buy rating for them, but the only difference now is the rating here came down to 393 for the high, average was 393, and low is 393. And the stock price right now is at 240, so that kind of corresponds to that. And I think it's because, we'll talk about it, but I think it's because they're future hash rate is pretty much exhausted here, or pretty close to being exhausted. So in April, yeah, we didn't provide any numbers getting installed. We did also see that in order to get to the 4.12 million that they mined, it looks like they were shut down for about 5 days during the month. I don't know whether it was because of electrical that they were testing or anything like that, but that obviously was a surprise for me there. We did write down here in March that they provided an update that they were at 1 exahash here, which gave us about 5 days worth of mining here. And now all of these are mining for 25 days. So that's an increase, obviously, from that. Looking at the numbers here, so we're looking at first quarter is about 8.275 million. Second quarter, nice quarter for them, is obviously higher than the first quarter, so that's good. So that's 12.29 million roughly that we're looking at right now, if things play out this way. HODL obviously is 797.28 Bitcoin, which is valued about 30 million or so, and that represents 44.9%, which is a lot. Let me see if I have that correct here. I've been going through a lot of numbers, so I might have missed something. Nope, holding of 797.28, so that's correct. So obviously, a lot of it is their HODL position. They have only 64 million market cap on them. So I think I'm going to go and say on it that they are way undervalued here, based on the HODL to market cap position, and then basically each share has about $1.08 in Bitcoin HODL right now, which is just insane for them. At 5 PE right now, I have them at $4.95, so they're probably like at 2 price earnings multiple. So they are way undervalued. I think they should be closer to possibly like 10. Like some of these other guys should be closer to 12, 15. I think 8 to 10 is, I think, reasonable for them based on their growth. So current hash rate is obviously 1 exahash. Future hash rate, we're going to be at about 1.14. And then so there are 87% installed right now. And average hash rate per miner is about 95 terahash. Shares outstanding is about 26.9, almost 27 million. And market cap is obviously 64 million. And stock price is $2.40. So way undervalued in my opinion as well. All of these guys are way undervalued. But it's the market that we're in right now where Bitcoin's going down and these miners are crashing hard. Okay, so I think that's it for Digihost. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to point out to you guys. But yeah, we'll see obviously if they grow in the future, if they have any plans to increase future hash rate. Obviously, they're talking about getting more installed as well. So we'll see what future brings for them. But I would like to see them to get at least up to like maybe 3-4 exahash within the next year and a half or so. That would be really nice to see. All right, let's get into the next one. So that was Digihost, and let me see here. Let's go into DMG. So DMG provides their updates via Twitter. So here's some of the key takeaways from DMG. So BTC mined was 88.07, miners added was 0, hash rate reached was 600 petahash, hash rate added was 0 petahash, daily average 2.93 Bitcoins mined per day, total blocks mined on pools managed is 84, hash rate across DMG pools 4.56 exahash, so obviously a pretty small pool there. All right, so let's take a look at DMG. All right, so DMG mined 88.07, which is still a nice increase over March at 74. So there's an increase of 13.24 BTC mined, but obviously the current value with the price coming down on Bitcoin is at 3.3 million compared to 3.4 million the prior month, which is obviously what we're in right now with the Bitcoin market. Institution-wise, they did have, looks like somebody sold some shares. Institutions stayed the same, but shares fell down to 3.3 from 4.2, and it represents about 1.99% ownership. We still have one buy rating. Price went down a little bit at 156 for the high, and for the average and low, stayed the same. Miners, obviously, they didn't get any miners installed, so that all stayed the same for April, which is here. I do have them also, let me see here, at 3.3, and I have them at 3.279, so we're pretty close to that. And that is obviously in Canadian being transferred over into USD dollars here. And this is for their hosting, I believe, which I'm adding into it, which I don't know if I should be doing it or not, but it's adding into it right now because if I have all these miners working at, on the regular 30 days, I would not be able to get to the 3.2 million here that they reported here. Well, they're at 3.3, but I'm pretty close to that. I'm only off by about 45,000 or so. So it's not too bad. So this might be even more than that. That could be up to 460,000 to get it close to it. That's 460,000. So yeah, so that gets us really close to that. But I just don't know how much they're making off of this. If it's even, if they're making 10% net income from that, or if it's less than that, I just don't know. But this is just basically gross revenue here. So that's where we are with the miners. We're at 600 petahash, about 6,000 miners being installed. Looking at the numbers here for them, we are for the first quarter looking at to be about 8.6, and then for the second quarter we're looking to be about 8.8 if everything stays the same and Bitcoin doesn't go any further lower. And they obviously need to get miners installed, so they still have some miners to get installed here. Hash rate is 432. This was reported December 31st. Let me see if they reported. They did not report it here, so we're still going with that until we get a number from them on the quarterly results. That is valued at approximately 15.7 million. They have a market cap of 60 million, so that represents almost 26% HODL position in their market cap. And shares outstanding is 168 million. Current stock price is 36 cents. Current hash rate is 600 petahash. Future hash rate is about 1.04 exahash. So they are 57.69% installed right now. And their average hash rate per miner is 100 terahash, which is really good. Being a small miner, they actually have some pretty good miners being installed right now. Price to earnings multiple obviously has come way down. They're about a 4 or 3 PE right now, based on what I'm seeing here. I think the same thing for like Digihost, DMG. I could see them being about between 8 and 10, which would be $1.42. And I believe the analysts are saying $1.56, which is pretty close to what, right there, 11 PE would be $1.56. So pretty close to what I think they should be at. So that's still a huge upside potential, obviously being at 36 cents. What would that be? 1, 2, 3, about 400% increase if it gets to that. So way undervalued in my opinion, just like the rest of the guys are. So obviously we want to see more mines getting installed, but they did obviously mine more, which is good to see. And we want to see that trend continue on. Obviously, if we get a negative or lower BTC mined per month, that's obviously going to weigh on the stock price, and it means that they're not keeping up with the Bitcoin network hash rate growth overall. Okay, so that's it for DMG Blockchain. Nice update from them. And let's get on to the next one. So the next one is Iris Energy. Iris Energy provided a bunch of pictures here from their sites. So Mackenzie, first 3 data center buildings, each 20 megawatts. Structure is complete. So 1, 2, 3, that's good to see. Figure 2 Mackenzie, racking and filter banks being progressed. In 3rd data center building, which is also good to see. And then Prince George storage facility being erected. Prince George substation foundation works progressing. And then Childress access road construction. So they are obviously under a lot of progress in a lot of places and a lot of stuff going on. So congrats to those guys for getting all this stuff going. And let's take a look at the operations here. So commissioning of the first 0.3 exahash, 9 megawatts, completed ahead of schedule at Mackenzie, British Columbia. Increased average operating hash rate to 1.038 or 1,038 petahash, 22% increase. Monthly operating revenue of 5.4 million. I have them actually a little bit less than that. I think they're using a little bit different numbers for Bitcoin on it than what I'm using. So we'll see if that gets changed in their quarterly reports, or at least how far we're off from it. And then 137 Bitcoins mined, which is a 13% increase. And then they go into all the construction details. You guys are always welcome to read these if you'd like, but there's just a lot, and I'm not going to go over all of it here. There's just a lot of information here. So let's take a look at the numbers that I have for them, and then we'll see what's going on here. So there was Iris. Let's take a look at Iris here. So Iris, obviously 137, which is an increase of 16 more Bitcoins in April than in March, which is good. So obviously they got some miners installed, which is good. We obviously had that 1 day less in April than in March. So this is really good. They were able to actually pull this off. And value on it, I have is 5.1. They have 5.4. And I think they might be just using a different value for Bitcoin. They might be using it from yesterday, I think, when Bitcoin was at closer to almost 40,000, I think. So that might be the reason for it. Institution-wise, institutions have increased as well to 40. Shares have also increased to 10,000,003%. Owned by institutions increased as well to 18.22. We still have one strong buy rating, one regular buy rate, or 4 buy ratings. High stayed the same, average stayed the same, and the low has stayed the same on that. So still at $31 basically for the high, average 26.40. For April, we installed basically 188 petahash of miners to get them to the 1.38 petahash. And those were the 100 terahash miners here. So 1,880 of those were installed, which is good. So nice increase by them there. That obviously leads us to monthly stats. So for first quarter, I'm at about 14.6 million. This quarter, I'm at about 13.6, depending on where Bitcoin price is. Bitcoin price is obviously way down. Keep saying this, but we're having at 13.6. So that's where we are looking at right now. And looking at the data, BTC HODL, obviously, I don't believe they HODL anything right now. They use it all for funding their infrastructure and build out and miners and everything else for their growth, which is also good because they're not also diluting a lot of shares, which is also good. So shares outstanding right now is 55 million. Current stock price is 981. Market cap is about 539 million, which is pretty good. Institutions, like we said, is 18. Here's the real kicker. So they are at 1 exahash, roughly a little bit more than that. Future hash rate, this is probably going to be not until 2023, but they are going to be at about 15 exahash, which is a lot of growth left in them. So operationally, they're only 6.9% installed, and their average hash rate per miner is about 98 terahash, which is really good as well. So they're at 981. We're seeing that because of their future growth, and I keep saying that future growth matters, they are getting right now basically like a 13, 12 price earnings multiple, where we're seeing the other guys getting 2, 3, 4. So this is obviously really big. I think if Bitcoin starts pumping, we could see them go up to at least, easily to 20, 23, 24, to like $19 or something like that, if not higher multiple, because of their future projected growth here. So analysts have them at, what would they have them at? 2640. 2640 would put us up to about a, 33 PE right now, based on that, and that all depends on how well they can execute and get miners installed each month here. So great month for them. Obviously, nice job getting all this installed, getting the facilities installed and underway. Their growing plans are pretty spectacular, so they're doing obviously all the good things, and we'll keep an eye on it. But nice job, Iris Energy. Congrats to those guys for nice growth. We want to see obviously this growth continue here. All right, let's take a look at the next one here, which is Hive. Okay, so Hive Blockchain provides April 22 production updates. So Hive is an interesting beast. They also mine Ethereum, so they also use the Bitcoin equivalent. So we'll get into that here. So let's see here. Company's global Bitcoin and Ethereum mining operations for the month of April 22, with a BTC HODL balance of 2,832 Bitcoin and 15,914 Ethereum. The Ethereum part I'm not counting, and this is as of May 2nd, 22. So 2 days after the end of April. So here's April 22 production figures. Let's go here. So straight ASIC, basically Bitcoin production was 268.8 BTC produced. They have 2.0 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity at the beginning of April, increased to 2.15, so 150 petahash increase of Bitcoin mining capacity at the end of April, which is good. They produced 2,537 Ethereum produced, and the company production of Ethereum from GPU mining, including selective optimization of the GPU hash rate, has yielded a total of Ethereum production of 2,537 Ethereum. Okay. Then 6.1 terahash of Ethereum mining capacity at the beginning of April, increased to 6.26 terahash of Ethereum mining capacity at the end of April, which is also good. So they're doing some optimization, making those miners even better. But we'll see how long they're going to be mining them. We keep hearing that Ethereum is going to be moving over to proof of stake. They're saying possibly Q3. So we may only have another 2 quarters or so, maybe even 3 quarters. We'll see how it goes for Ethereum mining. And then from that, they're going to use these GPUs for high computing for other things. So we'll see what income is from that. Like right now, they're obviously making pretty good money on Ethereum mining. So in April, we produced an average of 9 Bitcoins per day, and we are pleased to note that as of today, we are producing approximately 9.2 BTC a day, even after the recent difficulty increase of 5.5%. Ethereum was equivalent, basically 189.5 BTC. So this is what they produced equivalent to us. So this is in addition to the 268 for a total of 458.3 here. The company's total Bitcoin equivalent production in April 22 was 458.3 BTC equivalent. This is the number that we're using. 15.3 BTC equivalent produced per day on average. And they have 3.4 exahash of BTC equivalent hash rate, which includes obviously their Ethereum hash rate and Bitcoin hash rate combined together. And then successful green energy scaling through supply disruption. So Hive is pleased to provide a market update on the company's growth plans for the year ahead. The company will be at 6.2 exahash BTC equivalent hash rate in 1 year based on contracted monthly deliveries of ASIC and GPU hardware with deposits in place, up from 3.4 exahash of BTC equivalent hash rate today. And that is mostly from securing the Intel miners. So here's some commentary. So the crypto mining industry in general appears to find itself at a crossroads with a supply of very expensive ASIC chips and no few places to plug them in. And we're seeing that obviously Marathon's having issues with it. So is, who else was it that was having issues with it? It was, geez, I'm drawing a blank here. Digital was the other one that's having issues. They have a lot of miners, but they just can't find a place to plug those in fast enough. Moreover, the new market entrants racing to secure a position in Bitcoin mining ecosystem can contend with the current payback of buying ASIC chips at current retail prices from Chinese manufacturers with close to a 2-year ROI, which is really bad. Only a year ago, the experience was one where it was only 6 to 9 months payback, but that was also because Bitcoin was a lot higher. This is a result of the disproportionately high dollars per terahash retail prices from Chinese manufacturers relative to current hash rate economics. So I keep saying that, especially like with the ones from Antminer, they kind of look at it as basically how to price it out to be ROI of about 12 to 16 months or something like that. 12 to 18 months, right around there. And that's kind of where they price out the miners. So securing hardware at an attractive dollar per terahash price is key to generating a strong return on invested capital, whereas Hive's deal with Intel is much more attractive in return on invested capital, which the company has studied in comparison to market offers from other Bitcoin ASIC miner suppliers. So from the things that we heard was that Intel was going to be pricing these at about half the cost of what it costs to buy them from like Bitmain and things like that. So we'll see if that's actually the case. But the only thing is that Intel will provide the chips, and then miners have to source somebody to basically put them on the hashing boards, build the miners, build the computers to control them and everything else like that, and then software as well. Maybe Intel will provide the software, who knows. So that's it. Okay, that is it. So it will be interesting to see how they do with the Intels coming up here. So let's take a look at Hive numbers here. So Hive obviously provided that they made 458.3 Bitcoin equivalents, which is about an increase of 10.9 from the prior month of March. That is valued at 17.2 million, and that is basically because Bitcoin price went down. All right, we're seeing that quite a bit here. Unless you're able to generate a heck of a lot more, you're not going to be able to get above March numbers here unless you're, at least 20% higher or more in Bitcoin production. So they were up 2.44% on Bitcoin production from the prior month. Looking at the institutions increased as well by 3 to 141. So now they have shares, however, went down to 41.3 million. So percent owned also went down to 10.1 million. So it looks like a couple institutions bought in, a couple sold out. So we had a little bit of a decrease here. We still have one strong buy rating, and price target now is at 284 high, average 280, and low is 280 as well. Looking at the April numbers here, which are here, we installed these miners here, which are the 100 terahash miners, about 900 of those got installed here. We also installed 60 of the 74 terahash miners here, which we're needing to install, get them installed. I don't know which miners are getting installed, so I'm kind of using my best judgment on it to see what could be possibly getting installed. Since these were back from September, these should be getting installed by now. And then we also had these miners I put in here, the 100 terahash, 300 of those, and 20 or 250 of the 98 terahash miners here, for a total of 2.15 exahash, which is what they reported, if I'm not mistaken here. Just to double check, I want to make sure I get this right. They are at 2.15 exahash. Okay, perfect. We're right on cue there. Like I said, there's just a lot of numbers going around. This already took me like 4 hours to put all this stuff together for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out. Okay, so we got that. So looking at the quarterly numbers, so for Q1, we're looking at about 52.6, 52.7 million roughly in revenue. Q2 right now is looking at about 48 if everything stays the same, which I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping Bitcoin goes up in price. So that will obviously change. It would be nice to get a higher value in Q2 than Q1 for all these guys, obviously. HODL position is obviously 2,832, which is valued at about 103 million. So that represents 17.19% of their market cap is their HODL position, and that represents 25 cents of every share is in that. Looking at shares outstanding is 408 million. Current stock price is $1.47. Market cap is 600 million. And current hash rate 2.15. Future hash rate of them about 4 right now. So they are about 54% installed right now. And hash rate per miner on average is about 85 terahash, which is a little bit on the lower side compared to the other miners, but they have been mining for such a long time. One of the longest miners here, that it's kind of to be expected that their hash rate is going to be a little bit lower because they do have some older miners that they are still hashing with. But they do have orders for, obviously, newer miners as well. So right now at $1.47, we have them at PE of 5, which would be at 204. So they're obviously like at PE of 3 or 4, maybe 3.5, 4 right now. Way undervalued in my opinion, as always. If we take them up to about 10, where I think they should be 10 to 12, they should be around $4.89 to even higher than that, I would think. And obviously the big unknown is the GPU mining, what's going to happen with them in Q3 if Ethereum changes over to proof of stake. Might not be into Q4, but we'll see. So that's the big question that's unknown, and I think that might be also weighing a little bit on the investors as well. Okay, so we got that one down. So nice job by Hive here. They're obviously very efficient in what they're doing, and they're very thoughtful in what they're doing as well, which is good to see. So we'll see how it goes, but obviously a great month nonetheless. All right, next is Riot. So Riot is, let me see here. Right, okay. So Bitcoin production and operation updates for Riot. So in April 2022, Riot produced 508 BTC, an increase of approximately 150% as compared to April of 2021. Production of 203 BTC, which is obviously good to see that they're nicely growing year over year. As of April 30th, 2022, Riot held approximately 6,320 BTC, all produced by the company's self-mining operations, which is also really good. In April 2022, Riot sold 250 Bitcoin, generating net proceeds of approximately 10 million. And Riot currently has a deployed fleet of approximately 46,375 miners with a hash rate capacity of 4.7 exahash as well. So that's really good as well. Mining deployment and shipment updates. Since its last monthly update, Riot received an additional 5,070 new S19J Pro miners, deployed approximately 3,456 SJ Pros in its immersion cooled building. So this is obviously going to be interesting as well to see what kind of gains they get from that. With an additional 7,240 additional miners staged for deployment. Additionally, shipments of 1,702 SJ Pros have been initiated out of Bitmain and are expected to be received during May of 2022, which is good. And upon deployment of the stage miners and those from May delivery, the company expects to have a total of 55,370 miners deployed with a hash rate capacity of approximately 5.6. So that would be obviously a nice increase from the 4.7 that they are right now, almost 1 exahash. So that's really good if they can get that. Infrastructure updates, estimated hash rate growth. Here's what we want to talk about. So by January 2023, Riot anticipates a total self-mining hash rate capacity of approximately 12.8 exahash, assuming full deployment of approximately 120,150 end miner ASICs, but excluding any potential expected incremental productivity gains from the company's utilization of 200 megawatt of immersion cooling infrastructure. This is going to be huge. So this could obviously raise them up 20% or so on that. depending if those are the 100 terahash miners. Maybe they can get up to maybe 120 or so, 125 terahash. That is obviously going to be a nice increase in that. So we'll wait for that information from them. And that is it. Oh, so 2022 first quarter financial reporting will be held on May 10th. So that'll be next Monday, I believe. Monday or Tuesday. So we'll keep an eye on that as well, and we'll do a video on it when it comes out. All right, so let's take a look at the numbers I have for them. So Riot, where is Riot? Riot is here. Okay, so Riot April was 508. March was 511, so a little bit of a decrease, 3 less than in April, or less than in March. Represents 19.1 million basically in revenue. And sorry guys, I gotta take a sip here of water. My throat is starting to get really dry. Okay. So a little bit of a decrease, obviously, less days mined, but they did grow quite a bit here. So let's take a look at everything else that we have here. So institutions increased a little bit. So we got one more institution in here. Shares increased by a little bit as well to 43.79 compared to 43.24. Now represents 37.58% are owned by institutions. We still have 3 strong buy ratings, 7 buy ratings, and price target went down a little bit here on the average. So we had a high of 50, average went down to 38.33, and a low of 21. So the only thing that changed here was the average went down a little bit. Looking at the numbers here for April, let's see here. So here's April. So we installed basically about 380 petahash, which represented approximately 4,221 miners or so to get them up to the 4.7 exahash that they reported here. And price revenue is 19.124, which is really close to the 19.123 here. So they also have some hosting, but I don't know if they're getting rid of the hosting or not. So I have that at 0 right now. So that might obviously change my numbers here for their revenue for Q1 and revenue Q2. So right now I'm at 59.7 million for Q1. We'll see on the 10th what they report if I'm close to that. And if anything, hosting is the only thing that's going to be obviously the unknown factor here. And then for Q2, we have them at 57.5 million right now. So they are making a lot of money. And we'll see how this obviously plays out with Bitcoin in May and in June, see where it goes. If it continues going down, this could go down as well, depending on how many miners they bring in May and June as well. HODL position, obviously 6,320 Bitcoins HODLed, so that's 230 million. That represents 19.29% of their HODL position to market cap, and each share is basically $1.97 in HODL position on that. Shares outstanding, 117 million. Current stock price is 10.19. Market cap is almost 2 billion. And they are at 10.19, so they have a price to earnings multiple of 8. I think they should be closer probably to 20 because of their future growth. Boy, my throat is starting to get really dry. So at 20, we're looking at about $26 per share. So that's about 100 or so increase, 150% increase from where they are right now. And we can see that they are 4.7. They're going to be at 12.8 roughly in the future exahash. So they are 36% operational right now. And average hash rate per miner right now is 99, almost 100 terahash per miner, which is really good as well. So like everybody else, these guys still are way undervalued in my opinion. But we'll have to see how Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin starts pumping, these guys are going to start pumping as well. And we'll see the price earnings multiple start increasing up. So nice increase by them. We're still looking to get more. They still have obviously a lot of miners to get installed here. And then they also have these 140 terahash miners, which will be nice to get installed as well here and here. So that will be really, really good. And I believe these are the ones here that are supposed to be their immersion cooled miners. So we'll see what kind of increases we have on those. And those are right now at 90 terahashes or so. But we'll see what they actually report. And so that might change. All right. So great job by Riot. They're obviously doing the same things like CORZ, where they are basically in control of their infrastructure and everything else, which I think is helping them build out pretty consistently, whereas we'll look at Mara here shortly. Mara is just struggling right now on it. So great job to Riot. Congrats to those guys as well. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So next one is Luxxfolio. So Luxxfolio provided their update as well. So mining overview is part of as at or for the month of April 2022. So Bitcoin mining site operating at 180 petahash right now. So it's a 10 petahash increase from March. Total monthly Bitcoin mined was 25.39. Bitcoin equivalent reserves at the end of the month was 62.6, which is 60.7 BTC and 26.5. I'm using the 60.7 BTC in my calculations here. Ken McLean, president of Luxxfolio, commented, "We will continue to see site pH increase rapidly over the coming months as new miners arrive at site." So we'll see where they are now and where they are going to be. And we'll take a look at how things look. So let's take a look at Luxxfolio here. So Luxxfolio provided 25.39, which is a nice increase, obviously, from the 20.7, which is a 26% increase. So that helped them obviously make more in April than in March, even the price has gone down. So they made about 955,000 compared to 913. I looked at the institutions for them. Everything stayed pretty much the same here. Nothing has changed except for the price. Target is 93 for the high, and across the board here, where it was 95 prior to that. In April, we did increase them a little bit to get them to the 180 petahash here. So basically 10 petahash increase on it, which was basically 100 of these 100 terahash miners being installed. And currently I have them at, so Luxxfolio is kind of strange in the way that they are reporting. They're kind of reporting, what is it, December, January, and February as their first quarter, I think. And then obviously March, April, May is their second quarter or third quarter, whatever they're reporting it on. Did I write it down here? So here's the quarters, yeah. September, October, November, June, July, August, March, April, May, December, January, February are how their quarters are set up. So right now I have them at 2.5, almost 2.6 million for Q1 basically of this year. Q2 would be about 2.7 if things basically stay the way that they are right now. They do have some GPUs right now. I have those. In order to get the number to the 955, I had to increase their revenue on the GPUs to 65,000. So we'll see if that actually holds true. Bitcoin HODL is 60.7, so that represents about 2.2 million, and that is about 22.89% of their HODL to market cap ratio. And each share has about 4 cents of BTC HODL in it. And they have 53.7 million shares outstanding. Stock price is at 18 cents. Market cap is about 9.6 million. They are at 180 petahash right now. Future hash rate is 363 based on what is reported here. So they are very, very small. Operationally, they're about 50% installed right now. Average hash rate per miner is about 96.8 terahash. That would obviously make them at about less than 2%. They're about a 1.5 price to earnings multiple. I would give them maybe 5 or 6 price to earnings multiple, so maybe at 79 cents if things start picking up. But obviously, if they report that they're going to be getting more miners, things will obviously change for them. So nonetheless, good growth for Luxxfolio. It's always good to see when miners are at least growing each month. So congrats to those guys as well. And then let's get on to Marathon here. So Marathon will obviously go into both the corporate highlights for May, and then we'll get into the Q1 results as well. So Marathon didn't do as well. Then they obviously had problems. We'll take a look at it here. So they kind of stalled a little bit here. So corporate highlights as of May 1st, 2022. So increased total Bitcoin holdings to 9,673 BTC with a fair market value of 365 million. So they're pretty close to CORZ Scientific and Riot. Riot's getting pretty close over there as well. Successfully installed 4,183 miners, representing approximately 0.4 exahash in containers at new facilities in Texas, and with thousands of additional miners being installed and prepared for energization. Operating mining fleet consists of 36,830 active miners producing approximately 3.9 exahash, with thousands of additional miners expected to be energized in May. They keep saying that every month, but we're seeing very small growth here. Produced 299 self-Bitcoin mined during April 22, predominantly due to ongoing maintenance and downtime at the power plant in Hardin, Montana, reducing April's potential Bitcoin production by approximately 30%. Right? So this is really bad for them. And they are, I believe, providing information that they are going to be moving those miners out of there. They're just having too many problems with that plant there. So announced stage transition miners from fossil fuels powered by facility in Hardin. There we go. during the third quarter of 2022 as part of the company's initiative to achieve 100% carbon neutral by year end of 2022. So I think it's driven by that, and that they keep having problems with that plant there. They're just not able to continually to run on that plant. So here's our Bitcoin production update. This is kind of their chart here, what they are up. So they were up to 484 in December, down a little bit in January, down again in February, up in March, way down again in April. So kind of frustrating. So here's a note: upgrades and maintenance to the power generation station in Hardin caused Marathon's Bitcoin mining operations in Hardin to operate at a substantially reduced capacity in November 2021, negatively impacting the company's Bitcoin production for the month. In April 2022, the company's Bitcoin production was similarly impacted by maintenance to the power generation station in Hardin. Same thing. So that is unfortunate. Miner installations and hash rate growth. So in April, weather and maintenance issues caused the power generation station in Hardin to operate below normal levels, reducing Marathon's potential Bitcoin production by approximately 30% during the month. As disclosed on April 5th, Marathon intends to relocate its miners from Hardin to more sustainable sources of power in stages during the third quarter of 2022. During April, approximately 4,200 Marathon miners were successfully installed, pending energization containers at one of Compute North's new facilities in Texas. These miners were originally scheduled to be energized on April 17, increasing Marathon's hash rate by approximately 4 exahash or 11% from the prior month. Due to the company's energy provider requiring additional consent from third party, the energization of Marathon's miners was rescheduled to the month of May. Currently, the company does not expect this process to impact future deployments of miners. Hopefully that's the case, because they're having one issue after another, and it's just obviously beating them down here. And then obviously first quarter, so we'll take a look at the numbers here, and then we'll take a look at the first quarter numbers. So here's Marathon. Marathon provided obviously 299. That's a decrease of 137 less Bitcoins mined in April than it was in March. 31% decrease from that. And basically came up with a revenue of 11.25 million, which is a huge decrease of from 19.8. You're almost, 8.6 million less in April than in March. So that's a huge decrease. Institution-wise, we're still at 337. Shares did go down a little bit to 42.8 from 45.2, but the percent owned went up 41.61. So go figure on that one. We still have 3 strong buy ratings, 1 buy rating. High price target high is 65. Average went down to 51.6 from 58, and the low went down to 36 from 50. Here's what we got for April right here. So April, we did not install basically anything because they're still waiting to get energized, and we have them at 3.882 roughly. So really close to that 3.9 that they're saying that they're going to be at. But until I get confirmation that those miners actually are running, we won't do it. So they've been kind of flat here the last 2 months. Looking at the data here, they actually provided, so these are the numbers that they are actually provided as far as from the Q1. I already did the math here, but I had them at 52.9. They came in at 51.7 for the actual reported. We'll look at the numbers. So I was only off by 2.37% on the upside on it. So not bad at all. Pretty good. Kind of where I want to be. I want to be as close to, at least 1 or 2% off as I can be. So this is really good. I'm happy with that result. Bitcoin HODL obviously is at 9,673. That represents 352 million for them, which is 20.88% HODL to market cap ratio. And each share has about $3.32 of Bitcoin's HODL in it. And obviously shares outstanding right now is 106 million. Stock price is $15.90. Market cap is about 1.7 billion right now. Current hash rate is about 3.9. Future hash rate is going to be about 23.4 roughly. So they are obviously at 16.62% operational. Number of miners, 36,830. Hash rate on average per miner is 105 terahash, which is really good. And with the stock price of where it's at right now, they are basically at price earnings multiple of roughly 11, right? I think they would be a lot better off if they had consistent growth month over month and not having the issue that they're having right now with getting the miners installed. And I think part of that is they're relying on Compute North to get all these miners installed in places in Texas and in other parts of the country. And I think that's leading to issues. So, they're relying on a third party. I think that's part of the problem there. They need to obviously put their foot down on Compute North a little bit to get them to get their act together and get these miners installed, because they do have a lot of miners to get installed. So obviously not a good quarter, not a good month for them. April, production was down, way down, everything was down. So it's not looking too good for them right now. So right now I have them in Q2, possibly being at 43 million if everything just goes the way it is right now. But they might be obviously higher if they install more miners and price goes up. So we'll see how that goes right now. So I think that's it for them. They obviously still have a long ways to go. They still have basically almost 20 exahash to get installed, which is a lot. So we want them to do well. So hopefully they learn from their mistakes and improve on it, and we'll get on after that. And next thing is obviously Marathon's Q1 results. So let's go over that data, and I got some thoughts on this as well. So first quarter 2022 financial results, revenue increased to 51.7 million. So that is an increase of 42.6 million or 465 from the prior year quarter, a decrease of 8.6 million or 14% from the fourth quarter of 2021. Obviously, we know Bitcoin was a lot higher at that point. So that is obviously going to have an effect. Bitcoin production increased to 1,259 Bitcoin during the period and 50% increase from the fourth quarter of 2021. So even though they had increased their revenue, but price of Bitcoin has fallen down, that resulted in obviously less revenue. The revenue decline from the fourth quarter of 2021 was the result of approximately 25% decrease in average revenue per Bitcoin mined, which is true. We've seen the Bitcoin price come down. GAAP net loss for the quarter totaled 13 million or 13 cents per share, so they had a loss compared to a net income of 83.4 million or 87 cents per diluted share in the prior year quarter. The current year quarter includes 19.6 million in impairment charges related to self-mined Bitcoin held by the company and 5.5 million decrease in the fair market value of company's investment fund. And as obviously they invested their Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin, Bitcoin price goes down, they have to take an impairment charge on it. So that's okay. And first quarter 2022 highlights. I'm not going to get into the highlights here. I want to look at the numbers here really quick. And we'll get into the numbers here a little bit. There it is. Digital currency mining, so 51.717 million, which is obviously a nice increase from the year ago. Cost of revenue was 26.393 million, which is a huge increase compared to what it was a year prior of only 2.4 million. So this is almost 50%, where this was only about a little bit more than a quarter, like 27%, 28% or so. So double that, which isn't good. The other thing, compensation related taxes, so 10.3 million for compensation and taxes. I don't know if that includes, well, I think it shows down below, but I think that includes their stock-based compensation for that, which isn't good. Professional fees obviously increased as well. General increased. Impairment of mined digital currencies was the having to revalue their coins because the price of Bitcoin went down. Sorry guys, I got to take out a sip here. Okay, so total operating and administrative expense was 34.4 million. Operating income was negative 9.1 million, which isn't good. Where did I see that? Did I write it down here? I thought I marked it here. Maybe I didn't. But I thought I marked it on stock compensation expense net of withholding tax. So 9.2, here goes, stock compensation 9.2 million, which was quite a bit. I would think that stock-based compensation will be tied to performance, but I guess not. They're going to argue that they want to retain high talent, but unfortunately that high talent is not resulting in execution, unfortunately. So I am not a fan of that at all. All right, so not a good quarter. Obviously things are down for them as far as revenue is concerned from the prior quarter, but that's based on Bitcoin, and I want to see expenses go down. I really do want to see expenses go down. It's same thing with compensation for shares. So let's take a look at the numbers here as well that I have for it. So like I said, I was off by a little bit here. I was at 52. I was off by 2.37% from where I thought they would be, which is really good. That's kind of where I want to be. And you know, they just got to execute. They have such huge potential, Marathon does, to get things right, but I don't know what's going on with that whole Compute North arrangement and everything else there. I would think that they would be really pushing those guys to get everything done, especially with the amount of hardware that they have coming in. So they really just need to execute, and they're having problems with executing right now. So I don't know what that's going to entail going forward. If they continue to have problems, they're going to have to make some changes in management or something like that, but we'll see what happens. That's just my 2 cents right now. Right now, I am not looking to invest in Marathon. I just don't know if they can get their act together right now. If things change, Bitcoin goes down in price, where they do become a little bit more appealing. They're at 15.9 right now per share. If they come down to like 10, maybe I'll nibble a little bit. We'll see. But right now, I'm just not a fan of what's going on in the company. So that is it. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. So it's obviously been a long one. I'm probably over an hour right now as it is. But a lot of companies have wanted to provide the information. And I wanted you guys to have the information as well relatively quickly. I didn't want to space it over 3-4 days because obviously knowledge is power. So I wanted you guys to have this information. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And that's all I ask of you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Comment down below what you guys thought of all this. There's a lot to take in. And that's it. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next one.